Assalamu alaikum and welcome you all to Communication Theories 1 course. This course has a course code of GMC 311. This is lecture number 18 and in this part 3, the final part, we are going to discuss normative theories of the press. I'm Anwar Khan, lecturer journalism and mass communication department, Cohort University of Science and Technology. So outline of today's presentation, let's first of all have a look at it. Okay, the very first point is that we are going to have a look at the overview of the part 2. The concepts, the terms, terminologies and ideas that we discussed in the part 2, I am going to present an overview of all those concepts. We are not going to explain it again because it will be a sort of repetition and we have already done enough explanation and elaboration in the part 2. So it will be an overview of the part 2. Then we are going to have a look at the Hutchins Commission, and this Hutchins Commission is in the form of the history of the social responsibility theory, and the students of the communication and the media, they will come to know about that how the story of the truth, balance, objectivity, the key elements which play a prominent role in the field of journalism, in the field of communication, how they got their births, right? How they came into being. So it will be in the form of the Hutchins Commission or the history of the social responsibility theory. And interestingly, we are going to discuss the various elements of the social responsibility theory. It means that the social responsibility theory is not the name of a single entity or a concept, or rather different elements, concepts, they come together and make this social responsibility theory. So we are going to discuss those various elements. And then finally, we are going to have a look at the Soviet communist theory, which is our last normative theory in the list. And our lecture, part 3, will conclude on Soviet communist theory. Okay, then finally, we are going to present numerous examples of the normative theories. And remember that these examples will be in the form of that I will try to enable our students that they should be able to identify which country has which form of the normative theory or which form of normative theory they are following. So these are the outlines that we are going to discuss and elaborate in our today's session. So, various concepts that our students came to know about them in the part 2 are typologies of four theories of the press in the US and Europe. Then our students came to know about the libertarian theory of the press and we discussed it quite in detail. Then our students also came to know about experience of the libertarian theory and the problems faced by libertarian theory of the press. So these are the concepts and ideas that we discussed in the part 2, and I hope that our students would have understood all these concepts. Failure of both theories. So what was next? As we came to know that the media practitioners did not encourage the authoritarian system for themselves. They did not accept any of the authority which can control and curtail their freedom of the press. At the same time, the libertarian system, the media practitioners, they appreciated it, but neither the government nor the citizens of the US, they appreciated it. So what happened? The government, they had the opportunity and they introduced a federal radio commission in 1927, and that was just the beginning because government was seizing every opportunity to introduce different laws to control media, and it was just the beginning of that. And remember that it was not only the news media, the news organizations, even the entertainment industry was facing severe threats of censorship, and the religious parties at the US, they were demanding from the government, from the state, to have impose severe censorship on the entertainment industry as well, right? So in order to avoid all these limitations and to take a look, so what was the solution? The solution was to introduce some guidelines, standards for the media organizations, that media is working in these conditions, they are following these standards and principles. So in 1923, this very society, they introduced the canons of journalism, and it was a combination, a collection of certain principles introduced for the journalists, that they will be following these principles, which were replaced in 1975 by the statement of principles, and all of them, they are available in the internet. If you google it, you will come to know about it. So what happened that media was searching for its survival. Media was trying to tackle the government pressure and similarly some organizational pressures, and they were trying to tackle it one way the other way. And media was searching and using certain terms for themselves, like they were using the term of watchdog, muckrakers, fourth estate, and they were saying that they are working for the welfare of the public. They are guarding the welfare of the public. Media is actually the voice of the voiceless people. So they were trying different techniques of securing their freedom of the press. But government, they were seizing the opportunity because they knew about the media, that if it is used for the propaganda purposes by any of the dictator, so the consequences will be very dangerous. So we can say that there is a close relationship between media and the government, and both of them they depend upon each other for meeting their objectives. Government, it has its own agenda, purposes, and objectives. They want to meet it, and that's why they use media. While media, on the other hand, has its own agenda, purposes, and that's why it associates itself with the government. And yes, we can say that sometimes this media disassociates itself from the government as well. But government, we know that it knows that the media is powerful, and that is the reason that all the time they think about checking and curtailing the power of the media. The same thing has been discussed by different authors, by different scholars in different periods, right? And the same phenomenon has been discussed in the book Culture, Society, and Media. Very beautifully, the authors has described it, and they have said that in the different colonies of the French, Dutch, and the British, different local media, they basically criticized these powers, and once they got freedom, I mean these countries, these colonies got freedom, so this media had enjoyed freedom for a limited period of time, because when the coming governments they came to know about the power of the media, then they curtailed the freedom of the press, then they try to devise some policies so that they can check the power of the media. So, what is the solution? That we have already studied in the normative theories, like authoritarian theory of the press, where the government wants to have full control over the media, and then the libertarian theory of the press, that where different scholars, very renowned scholars, they said that there has to be complete freedom to the media. There should be no rule and regulation, not a single commission which can check the power of the media, right? So what is the solution, right? The solution was in the form of the social responsibility theory. It said that this theory was in the middle of the spectrum, we can say. At one end, we find the authoritarian of the theory of the press, and at another end, we find the libertarian theory of the press. And this social responsibility theory of the press, it was in the middle, right? So we can say that the different pressures which were established from the government, it was tackled in such a way that the media practitioners, it uh, told the government that they are socially responsible media practitioners, and they have devised these rules and regulations, and they are pursuing these very rigorously. So let's have a look at the background of social responsibility theory, and we came to know that the government was in favor of controlling the power of the media, while the media practitioners, on the other hand, they were not accepting all these premises of the government, because the media practitioners said that curtailing the power of the media will distort their responsibility, will distort the role of the media in a true democratic society. So that was the reason that they were not accepting it. On the other hand, government was insisting and persistent with their regulation and commission claims. So what happened that there was a person with the name of Henry Luce, who was the CEO of Time Inc. He said that there has to be an independent commission which should look at, or we can say that which should work on the freedom of the press, and we should make some rules and regulation which should be in favor of the media, as well as which can satisfy the government as well. So he was a person who provided funding for a commission, and in 1942, And this very commission, which was made in 1942, this commission was called as the Hutchins Commission, right? And this very commission, it released its finding in 1947. So, will you believe that this very commission, it worked for 5 years? And within these 5 years, they discussed, they had numerous meetings, and then they came with certain ideas, with certain concepts. And remember, and it is interesting that this very commission was not consisted of the journalists only, right? It is interesting because this very commission was consisted of members from society, academicians, politicians, and leaders of a social group. So they had very detailed discussion that how media can act responsibly, social responsibly, how it can act at the same way, how they can believe the government that these rules and regulation are enough to curtail the role of the media or the power of the media. So, findings of the Hutchins Commission. So, according to one of the communication scholars, Dennis McWill, who is a very renowned scholar of the communication, and he summarized the findings of the Hutchins Commission. And let me tell you that these findings are actually the social responsibility theory. That there will be freedom of the speech, right? There will be a liberty of all forms of communication, but they will be socially responsible, because if they are not working in the parameters or keeping the guidelines in mind, then that media organization can have consequences, right? Can face severe punishment in the form of the fine or censorship or in different forms. But at that time, actually, the Hutchins Commission, it contributed a lot for the survival of the freedom of the press at that time. And these are actually the findings, right? And Dennis McWill basically summarized all those documents and brought it before us. So these are, media should accept and fulfill certain obligations to society, and that is very first of the finding of the Hutchins Commission, that media has a responsibility to the society, to the people of the society. And what are the obligations? These obligations are standard of information, truth, accuracy, objectivity, balance. It means that when you are providing information, so you are to provide truthful information, accurate information, objective information, and balanced information, right? So these were actually the findings of the Hutchins Commission. Then will what happens? I mean, if you study all these, findings, so you will come to know that they are very balanced guidelines or principles for the media industry, and it saved them, right? It saved them. So it speaks about the self-regulating within the framework of the law and the established institutions. So it means that if you have to be self-regulating, right, yourself, you have to be accountable to the people, you have to be accountable to the society, and you should not publish anything, you should not say anything from your own side. You have got a responsibility to the society, to the people of the society, and if you publish anything which cannot be proven and which could damage the fame of someone, so according to law and established institutions, they are going to punish you, right? So these are the things. And similarly, it was said that the media should avoid whatever might lead to crime, violence, or civil disorder, or give offense to minority groups. And similarly, the media as a whole should be pluralist and reflect the diversity of their society, given access to various points of views and rights of the reply. So, representing every section of the society, pluralist is basically representing every section of the society, whether it is a minority or it is a majority, or whether it is the every sort of people you are to give opportunity, you are to present in your media. It will not be so that you are giving information or stories related to majority of the people. No, it will be wrong. You have to consider the minority as well. Similarly, society and public have a right to expect high standards of performance, and intervention can be justified to secure a public good, right? And similarly, journalists and media professionals should be accountable to society as well as to employers and the market. So all these findings, if you read it out, you will come to know that they are very balanced uh, findings and principles for the media organization, for the journalists, for the reporters. And these are like the same thing which were established in 1923 and in 1975, which were then transformed into again into statement of the principle, different principles. Then so these are the findings of the Hutchins Commission, and Hutchins Commission's findings are basically the social responsibility theory. Let's discuss Soviet communist theory, and let's come to know that what is the difference between this very theory and the social responsibility theory and other theories that we have already discussed. So I hope that you will know about the revolution, the Russian Revolution, which took place in 1917, and it was a political and social revolution which transformed everything right in the Russia, and which transformed Russia from the Russian Empire into the Soviet Union. And we know about Lenin that he was the main person leading from the front, right? He was active at that time. His party, Bolshevik, it was working, and he was leading from the front. And at that time, then 1923 or 1924, this empire was transformed and restructured into the USSR, right? New political setup. It was based on the principles of the Karl Marx and Lenin. And then what happened that Lenin, he knew that media is playing a very vital role because it was just the end of the final stages of the World War One, and we know that media at that time also played a greater role to make the narratives of the people of the different countries, right? So what happened that he thought that media can be a very effective tool for the welfare of the working class, right? So he was working on this very perspective, and at the same time he knew that this very media can also be very fruitful for the state, for the government as well. If so, what happened and what did they do? So they devised a new theory, and this theory had its root in the principles of the Karl Marx, Lenin, Stalin, and in with the mixture of Hegel ideology. And this new theory, which emerged, it was called as the Soviet media theory, right? Or it was also called as the communist media theory, right? Because it emerged in the communist state or in the communist country. So that was the reason that it is called as the Soviet communist theory. Soviet communist theory, let's discuss it there to what are the characteristics of this very theory and how it differs from social responsibility theory and other theories that we have already discussed in the previous lectures. So the very first characteristics of this very theory is that a state owns or in some way controls all forms of media. So it means that a state state owns all the media, or it one way or the other way controls all form of the media. So it is really difficult for the state to own all the media. So a private ownership is there. There is no doubt. Surely there will be the print media, electronic media. It will be working in the country. But what happened that it is under the control of the government. It is under the control of the state because state is controlling all forms of media. Then we say that this theory says that state has absolute power to control any medium for the benefits of the people, to serve the working class and their interests. So this is very interesting. And the proof is, the logic is that they are controlling the media for the sake of the people. I mean, this is very interesting to say that they are controlling the media, right? And they are introducing different restrictions and laws and regulations for the sake of the people, so that this media can work well for the working class, can work well for their interest, right? For the interest of the, or for the welfare of the working class, so for the welfare of the people. So in that shape they are controlling the media indirectly. Then we say that media is used to project the positive image of the state, and at the same time, surely that when they are controlling the media, they are forcing the media to project positive activities of the streets, and not to report the negative activities like the corruption, like the ill performance, right? So they are not allowed to report those type of news, and at the same time working for the concerns of the working class to achieve a better understanding and structure society. So at the same time they are working for the working class as well, and they are working for the welfare of the working class so that they can have a well structured society, right? The people are working for the betterment, for the development of the country, and they are thinking that everything is okay in the country. Because what happened that the news media or the media which is under the control of the state or the government, they are portraying positive activities or positive image of the state. So the element of the feedback is there, right? The concerns of the working class is also shown to the high ups, to the elites of the state, right? And the state then addresses those complaints of the working class. So what happened that then we will have a well balanced society, right? That people are working for the development of the country, they are not deceived by the laws, lies, or fake news or fake information, because all of them they are under the control. And what the elite or the state think it is necessary for the people of the country, they are providing those information to the. So weaknesses of Soviet communist theory, let's discuss it. So the very first weakness or demerit of the Soviet communist theory is that according to this theory, propaganda-based information is given to the public of that very country, right? Only positive information is given to the public, and people will be thinking that everything is okay, government or state is performing very well. They will not know that where are the loopholes, where are the weaknesses of the government that needs to be improved, right? And the improvement comes with the discussion, with the debate, but they are doing what, they are not giving their type of information to the public. Then we can say that no media can criticize the government. Well, so this is another weakness of the communist theory, that the media is not allowed to criticize the government, and at the same time the role of the media, it has been curtailed, it has been minimized. We say that the role of the watchdog, it will not be performed by the media, because they are not given so much strength. Media is not so much free, it is not so much powerful that it can perform the role of the watchdog or the voice of the voiceless people. So here is the tricky part of the presentation, where you will need lots of information, general knowledge regarding different forms of government working in different countries of the world. And then it will be easy for you to decide whether that very country or the government is following authoritarian theory of the press, or libertarian theory of the press, or social responsibility, or Soviet communist theory of the press. So you need to have information about the form of the government that is working over there. Similarly, another important thing that you need to have information is that these normative theories, I mean, it doesn't mean that a country will always and completely follow one form of the government. No, it does not mean so. These normative theories can overlap. For example, if a country is following libertarian theory of the press, then at another time uh, of the history, it can follow the social responsibility theory of the press, or even sometimes it can become or act like the authoritarian government, right? So we need to understand and keep these things in mind, that these can overlap from each other. So the very first thing is that if we want to search the examples for the authoritarian theory of the press, so we can say that we need to search such governments or such countries where kingship is there, dictatorship or autocratic form of governments is there. Then in those countries, authoritarian theory of the press will be there. We can have, I mean, no, it depends upon you. I'm not going to pinpoint any of the country. You will have lots of information about different countries where dictatorship is there, where kingship is there. So we can easily find these examples, and we can easily apply authoritarian theory of the press in those countries. Why? The reason is that those countries are trying to control the media as much as possible. They do not want to give much freedom to the media. They want to control the activities of the media, right? So, authoritarian theory of the press, we came to know about it, that the form of the government should will be in the form of the kingship, dictatorship, autocratic, etc. So then we will have authoritarian theory of the press will be applied in those countries. Soviet communist theory of the press, can we can say that it is easily applied to countries where communism is there. For example, take the example of the Vietnam, Cuba, and some other countries of the world. And there are some of the countries which have moved from the communism to the socialism, right? So, Soviet communist theory of the press will be applied in those countries where they are following the communism. And then the examples of the libertarian theory of the press and the social responsibility theory of the press, I can say that the governments will be in the form of the, we can say that democratic form of the government if there, then we can say that those countries are following as the libertarian theory of the press at some time, and at another time they are following the social responsibility theory of the press. As I told you that these normative theories will overlap. It is not necessary that there will always be a social responsibility theory of the press. No, it does not mean so. At a specific time of the day, it may act in the form of the, or we can say, libertarian theory of the press can be applied, and at another time of the day, social responsibility theory of the press can be applied. In the references section, I can suggest you these two books once again for theories of the press written by these three scholars. And the second book is Mass Communication Theory, uh, Foundations, Ferment, and Future, seventh edition. Both of them, they are very important book. In this very book, the first one, you will have complete information about the uh, four theories of the press, right? The authoritarian theory of the press, libertarian social responsibility, and communist, Soviet communist theories, right? And in the second book, you will have lots of information again about the normative theories of the press. And I have already suggested you both these books in the previous part one and in the part two as well. And I told you that this very book will assist you in your higher studies. If you're pursuing your higher studies, then this book will assist you over there as well. So try to download these books as well. If you cannot find these books, I have it. You can send me your email, and in the email, I will send you the soft form of these books. So, thank you very much. This is the end of today's session. See you in the next lecture. Till that, Allah Hafiz.